Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. Well, today is Throat Punch Thursday.
Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Who's ready?
It's Throat Punch Thursday, bitch.
As Mike would say, that's what you get for talking trash wearing Ranger panties. Anyway, folks, we're having a good time. I have to be honest with y'all, I don't know where Mike is right now. My guess is he's off working, but he unfortunately was not able to make it today. I've got the thing open, so if he does happen to show up, I will make sure to include him and get him plugged into the program. But for right now, it's going to be me, it's going to be you, and we're going to have a good old time talking about the news today. But before we do, we're going to do as we usually do. We're going to start with a quick shout out to our sponsors. We're going to start with the folks over at Hitman Industries. They make rifle and pistol caliber barrels that are available for you to purchase at any length. You need to go check them out today at hitmanindustries.net. If you've purchased an AR in the last 4 or 5 years, chances are you already have one of their barrels. I'm sure you love it. Why not get another one? So whether you're looking to do a brand new build or you're looking to rebarrel your old rifle, start your experience with Hitman Industries. And then we've got the California Republican Assembly working to help elect conservatives at all levels of government, from school board all the way up to President of the United States. In fact, Ronald Reagan once referred to CRA as the conscience of the Republican Party. You need to find out why. Just go to their website, cragop.org, that's cragop.org, and find out. And then we've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market. You will find them at hogholsters.com. That's HAWG holsters.com. Why is it spelled like that? Because they like helping Americans wear guns. All you have to do is go to their website, check them out, and if you find one that you like, make sure you use the discount code THERUNDOWN. All caps, no spaces, one word, just like it is right up there, and you're going to get your hog holster on discount today. And then finally, it's about that time, folks, right? It's a change in weather, it's a change in seasons. Now's the time for you to go out and get some new tactical gear. Well, the place you need to go is uscombatgear.com. They specialize in group sales. They have all things tactical. When I say all things tactical, I mean all things tactical except the gun. Check them out today. Once again, uscombatgear.com. Now, because it's just us, you know I'm looking for your input. You know I want you to be involved in this program. I hate just having a one-way conversation where I'm the only one talking. So go in, check it out. If you're watching us 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, that means you're watching us live. I would love to get your comments. Go ahead, leave your comments. I will be checking them out. If I find them to be interesting, I will go ahead and include them. And I'll tell you right now, to be honest with you, the most interesting comments, well, they're the ones where you disagree. So I love it when you guys disagree, because what that also gives me an opportunity to mock you.
Oh wow, is that a mockingbird?
Man, is that a mockingbird? Is that a mockingbird?
As Mike would say, we will mock you. All right, let's go ahead and, well, first of all, let's see if anyone's tuned in yet. Okay, we've got folks tuning in, so I see there's a bunch of y'all are watching, but nobody's commenting yet. So anyway, we'll go ahead and get into the news of the day. The first one here has to do with Gavin Newsom. That's right, Gavin Newsom, the governor of the state of California. He has decided that he is going to hit back hard at President Trump when it comes to this, the fund that has been created, the $1.776 billion fund that was created in order to, that he created basically in order to help compensate people who have been aggrieved by the government. When I say aggrieved by the government, I'm not just talking about, oh, well, they did something mean to you. I'm talking specifically that what they did was they decided, the government decided that they were going to weaponize the government against them, right? In other words, instances where the government has falsely persecuted, prosecuted, yada, yada, yada. It includes people, not everybody who was involved in January 6th, but those people, for example, who basically were hunted down and arrested because they walked into the Capitol building, right? They were let into the Capitol building, and they were, in essence, then turned around and the government decided that they were going to basically prosecute them for that. Well, this is an opportunity for people who, if it is determined that they have been so aggrieved that they would then be able to get compensation in exchange for it. But in this particular case, they want to make sure they can kind of tell you a little bit more about it. And we have no audio. Well, that is just interesting. Let's see if I can try this again. Here we go. Let's try this one more time. See if I can get some audio this time.
Welcome back. Governor Newsom vowing to tax 100% of any money Californians receive from President Trump's so-called Anti-Weaponization Fund. Trump's Justice Department announced the creation of the $1.8 billion fund last week to compensate people who believe they were mistreated by the Biden administration. It's part of a deal to resolve President Trump's lawsuit against the IRS over the leak of his tax returns. Meantime, Governor Newsom also signed a bill that would ban anyone, including law enforcement, from disrupting an election or seizing ballots.
He's an invasive species. We've never been up against something like this. And he's just not, he's just winding up. I mean, he doesn't believe in fair and free elections. He believes in competitive authoritarianism.
The governor's move comes amid concerns the Trump administration would try to interfere with next week's state primary.
And that pretty much nails it. See, what the goal of what he's trying to do here is real simple. He's trying to hurt Trump, right? He's trying to hurt Trump supporters. But keep in mind, what he's actually doing here is he's basically going after Californians. So if it's been deemed that you have been aggrieved by this, by the government, right? If it can be determined that the government basically falsely prosecuted. By the way, it's not just January 6th, folks, right? Anybody, this is basically open for anybody. So some of these pro-life organizations were basically, you had people who were literally arrested and put on trial for praying in front of abortion clinics, right? Those folks. If there are any people who were out there peacefully protesting, let me do the air quotes, peacefully protesting ICE, and they felt like they were aggrieved and falsely prosecuted by the government, they also can get access to these funds. If there's anybody out there who, the George Floyd riots, anybody can do it. You have to apply, and you have to come up with some sort of evidence that you have been, once again, that you have been falsely aggrieved by the government. But see, anybody who dares go after those resources, those funds, in the state of California, you're going to be taxed. Who is he harming? Is he hurting Donald Trump? No. Is he hurting the Republican Party? No. He's hurting Californians. His goal is to take money out of the pockets of Californians. He's not interested in making a financing statement. He's not interested in making he's making a political statement here. And chances are, if he's able to get away with it, which, by the way, I don't know that you can actually get away with specifically targeting a direct source of funds and then tax it at that level. I honestly don't believe that is something that legally he can get away with. But he's also not afraid of spending your tax dollars or Californians' tax dollars in order to fight that in court. And well, it actually would be ours too, because you have to imagine, I don't know if it would be the federal government, if they would have standing in those cases. I don't know if they would. I don't know if the federal government would have standing in those cases, but individuals would basically have to seek legal counsel. So you'd have to spend money in order to be able, of course, then again, I guess if you got it and you were refusing to pay it, you'd have money to pay your legal fees. And then once they went after you, then I would then go after the government for my legal fees. Anyway, it's going to be interesting to see how that whole thing turns out. But this is literally just warfare against the government. And once again, against Donald Trump. And the interesting thing about it is they really don't care about what's right. They don't care about what's just. They don't care about the facts. All they care is Donald Trump proposed it, so therefore it has to be evil. And that's all it really is. Donald Trump proposed it, therefore it is evil. I personally am not a big fan of the fund. That's just me personally. I get the point that he's making as to why he's doing it, but he's also making a political statement because, I mean, if there were an amount that he could kind of arrive at, that'd be one thing. But the fact that he decided to make it, 1.776 billion. I mean, come on. That's a publicity stunt. That's what that is. But having said that, the general idea of if people have been agreed, and I think they should be able to sue the government. In this particular case, I'd rather, well, I guess it would make more sense if they actually just sued the government for this stuff as opposed to having a fund behind it. But like I said before, Donald Trump decided he was going to make a political statement, and Gavin Newsom, who wants to be the next president of the United States, he is definitely going to take advantage and use this as an opportunity for him to make a political statement out of it. So anyway, they're playing politics, and the worst part is they're playing politics with our money. So not a big fan in either case. All right, that now brings us to the next one. U.S. and Iranian negotiators reach a tentative deal. Okay, what do I mean by a tentative deal? Well, it appears that this tentative deal would equate to an extension of the ceasefire. And this is being reported by the Associated Press. Here it says U.S. and Iranian negotiators reach a tentative deal to extend ceasefire and start new nuclear talks. So it says here, U.S. and Iranian negotiators have reached a tentative agreement Thursday to extend the ceasefire in the 3-month-old war by 60 days and to start a new round of talks on Iranian's nuclear program, according to a U.S. official familiar with the matter. Iran did not immediately confirm any deal, and the official noted that President Trump has yet to sign off on it. The emerging memorandum of understanding came as the fragile ceasefire in the war between the U.S. and Iran appeared to be wavering. The latest flare-up in fighting happened less than a day earlier when Kuwait intercepted missiles fired from Iran, according to U.S. Central Command. Now, here's the thing I'm just going to say about this. And I'm trying to figure out what's the point of having the ceasefire if Iran is still going to continue to shoot rockets at people? If they're going to shoot rockets either at us and our facilities, if they're going to continue to shoot rockets at Israel, if they're going to continue to shoot rockets at other Middle Eastern countries, right? Like Kuwait, like UAE, like all of these other countries. If they're going to continue to do that, then they're not honoring the ceasefire. The only people not firing are us. We're the only ones not shooting. I'm trying to figure out, why are we not just using whatever shock and awe, whatever force we deem is necessary to open up the Strait of Hormuz and end their ability to be able to launch rockets at ships in the Strait of Hormuz? I don't understand what it's going to take to do that. But why are we not? Because we seem to be the only ones abiding by this ceasefire. It's making no sense. And I've been a supporter, I've been a defender of the president when it comes to this war so far. I've kind of had his back, but we're getting to the point where it's been so long since we've seen any progress. Going longer, and I get it, we're only like 60 days in, but a further extension of no progress starts to become the very definition of a quagmire. So it's time to, as I tell my grandson, it's time to poop or get off the pot, right? It's time to either just decide that, hey, well, we've gotten all we're going to get, which I think is a bad idea, because we're not now in the same position that we were going into this war. Going into the war, at the very least, we could say, going into the war, one of the things that we did in the very beginning was we pretty much have pushed their missile program far, far into the future. Have we completely destroyed it? Mostly, but not fully. Same thing with their nuclear weapons program. Mostly destroyed. We can leave and say that's a good deal. But the other problem, the problem that we created in that, has to do with the Strait of Hormuz. In other words, now they know that is a choke point. Now, instead of utilizing the nuclear program as that kind of hammer with which they will hit people around them, and then people around the world, now they know that the Strait of Hormuz is a pressure point. And sadly, we exposed that, right? We revealed that. Part of the conflict with us helped to reveal that. So we have an obligation to deal with that before we do anything. I get it. Once we deal with that and then we get out of there, that's fine. I think at that point we have won. We cannot pull out right now with the Strait of Hormuz as a pressure point and say that we won. And that's what's crazy about that is that we've destroyed their Air Force, we've destroyed their Navy, we've taken out multiple layers of their leadership. I get it. But the question is, has our overall position improved? And one would have to say, if the Strait of Hormuz isn't open, you can honestly, and there's a legitimate argument to say, no, our position has not been improved. The only thing that's been saved is maybe lives aren't at risk, but definitely economies are at risk. And they'll still be in a position to be able to use those things against us. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. I'm hoping that they can figure something out soon. I don't understand why they haven't, but then again, I'm no military expert. I'm also no Middle East expert. So there may be stuff that I don't know about. There may be articles. I'll spend some more time reading and trying to figure out exactly what's going on over there. But all I know is that we are very, very close to it being considered a quagmire. The media is already calling it that. The left is already calling it that. I don't believe we're there yet, but I do believe we are closer now than we were 30 days ago to calling it to it legitimately being a quagmire. And I think a number of conservatives have warned of stuff like this. That was one of the reasons why some folks didn't want us to get into it. But I'm believing and I'm hoping that President Trump has a way to address this stuff and gets on it like yesterday. Anyway, that's my belief and my hopes. Anyway, all right, judge refuses to block Trump order for mail-in voting. Well, there's a little bit more to it than just that, but I got to make these things fit in here. This is an article that's once again over at the Associated Press. Judge refuses to block Trump order to limit mail voting. There's no immediate effect on the midterms. It says here, a judge has declined to halt President Donald Trump's executive order creating a federal voter list and limiting mail voting, clearing the way for potential sweeping changes in how American elections are run shortly before this year's midterm elections. U.S. District Judge Carl Nichols, a Trump appointee in Washington, late Wednesday rejected the request by Democrats and civil rights groups that had argued Trump's order would likely be found unconstitutional because the states and Congress, not the president, have the power to set election rules. Nichols agreed with the Republican Trump administration's contention that it was too early to block the order because it has yet to be implemented. Nichols' ruling leaves the door open for further challenges when the Trump administration moves to implement the president's directive. A separate lawsuit seeking to block the executive order is underway in Boston. No matter how rapidly the administration acts, no voting changes are expected during primary elections, which continue next month. The court, quote, the court recognizes that the Postal Service may ultimately issue a final rule that directly affects plaintiffs or their members, or that the government may develop state citizenship lists that omit specific individuals due to particularized flaws, Nichols wrote. Plaintiffs may, of course, renew their motions, and when those future actions where was that? Oh, future actions occur. Until then, however, plaintiffs cannot show that preliminary injunctive relief is warranted. So in other words, there's an executive order, but nothing's been done yet. So because nothing's been done yet, they're really not in a position to block the order. And they won't be in a position to block the order until something is actually done. And this is, once again, one of the biggest problems with litigation surrounding elections is so much of it is tied up in Well, when does it actually happen? Because until the election actually happens, or until things actually are put in place for it to happen, you really don't have the ability to address some of this stuff. And then after it happens, after the election, well, you've got a certain amount of time in which it has to be addressed by law. Otherwise, the election results become the election results, and there's no undoing the election. We got to try, and once again, I'm not a lawyer, and I did not spend last night at a Holiday Inn Express, but we got to figure some of this stuff out. How do we find legitimate ways to look into, to investigate, or to specifically litigate some of these issues in a timely manner such that we can actually get some serious questions to some of these things? Once again, I don't know what that looks like. If you're a lawyer out there and you have an idea, let us know in the comments. Would love to hear your thoughts on how we deal with this. Or who knows, maybe you think that all of these challenges are all hooey, right? Maybe you think all of the challenges to the 2020 election were hooey. I think there were some legitimate challenges. I think there were some challenges. Most of the challenges, by the way, that got tossed out back in 2020 were not because they weren't legitimate challenges. Most of them got kicked out because of standing, because the people filing didn't have the appropriate standing. And when you have people last minute rushing to file lawsuits, well, finding a plaintiff is never easy, right? First, you got to find the plaintiff, right? Then you got to vet the plaintiff. And then you got to put together the lawsuit based on their particular case. And you try to put it together in as broad a situation as possible, because you want it to affect a bunch of people. Well, that takes time. That doesn't just happen. And right now, the way the system is set up in terms of how we litigate these things, it's just there's no way to do an effective job, have literally a full open discussion about it, and get a ruling back in time to be able to, change things in that particular election. All you can do is impact, well, you can look back and say, okay, yeah, you were right, that election was handled wrong. And we won't do it going forward. But the election that you were contesting is already done. And we've seen in some cases where, the federal government, or even some state governments have come back and said, yeah, we handled that one wrong.
Yeah, it's a little tired.
Now, that's not every case.
Oh, yeah,
It's not even most cases, but it's happened.
He's good at what he does. I just
And in the end, you can't really do anything, right? Because, well, you've moved along, right? The case is now no longer ripe, shall we say, right? It's stale because the situation has moved on. Anyway, moving right along, we got one gun story here that you folks are going to be interested in. This has to do with binary triggers in the state of Minnesota. It has to do with their attempt to ban binary triggers. As is noted here, Minnesota binary trigger ban struck down as gun control bill dies. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and his legislative allies in the Democratic Farmer Labor Party had a rough 8 days in May, with legislative session ending on the 18th without passing their gun control legislation, and a major court loss on the 26th, striking down the binary trigger. Oh, okay. So I stand corrected. So this particular case, it was the binary trigger. Ban snuck into a spending bill in 2024. Walz has not had a good year, with much attention paid to welfare fraud in North Star State on his watch, and his inability to move legislation which would have put new restrictions on gun owners. It is no wonder he is not running for re-election and is vowing to quit politics. The Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus is celebrating its victory in the state court of appeals, nullifying the binary trigger ban because its inclusion in the 2024 omnibus tax spending bill violated the state constitution's single subject rule. Now, for those of you who do not know, that's in some places that's called germaneness issue, meaning every bill can only have one topic, right? And everything you do within that bill has to be germane to that. Well, that's the same thing with a single subject. In other words, you can only cover really one subject. In this particular case, they were talking about it's a spending bill, right? So if you have a spending bill, it has to deal with spending. It does not, it should not have to do with banning particular firearms or particular firearm parts. And that's what they're addressing in this particular thing. And it's a big win because, gun grabbers don't care about they only care about rules that benefit them, right? That help them do what it is they want to do. They don't care about the Constitution, or in particular when it comes to gun rights. They don't care about what the Constitution, they don't care about that shall not be infringed. They're going to go out of their way and work things around in order to get done what it is that they need to get done. And, Tim Walz, he's going to have a hard time. Well, he's got a lot of stuff he's dealing with. He just does. I mean, from a failed vice presidential campaign to the fraud investigations that are taking place there in Minnesota. And trust me, they've barely hit they've barely gotten the camel's nose under the tent when it comes to the investigations that are taking place there in Minnesota. Well, let me clarify, taking place nationally. So anyway, that's a big victory for the folks up there in Minnesota. If you are if you are a believer in the right to keep and bear arms, that's a big, big win for you. All right, folks, that now brings us to our parting shots. Now, parting shots are brought to you by Hog Holsters. Just go to hogholsters.com, use the discount code of the rundown, all caps, no spaces, one word, just like it is right up there, and you can get your Hog holster on a discount. All right, all of our parting shots today are going to be brought to you by our friends over at the Babylon Bee, fake news that you can trust. The first one here, California passes law making it a crime to report crime. Yeah, pretty much. There you go. Next, family hit hard by rising cost of necessities like gas, groceries, Netflix, DoorDash, discount wine club, pie of the month subscription. Now, this is interesting largely because in many cases, all of these places where they're talking about how cost of living has gone up, there's a bunch of stuff that they include in there that are not necessities. And that's what they're speaking to in this one. Here we go. Jill Biden explains she thought Joe had a stroke during debate, which is why she left him up there to die. Wow, okay. That's an interesting one. Okay, moving right along. Here we go. James Tallarico taking not acting gay lessons from Tim Walz. Wow. Yeah, I got to tell you, dude is kind of weird. I'm just going to leave it at that. And that reminds me of this next one. Democrats hopeful average Texas voter wants to ban steak and think God is gay. Yeah, that's pretty, I mean, pretty much if you're a Democrat in Texas and you believe that Tallarico is the man, then that's what you believe. You believe they want to ban steak and they think God is gay. Because that's the Christian message that he has. Anyway, and then finally, White House announces Iran deal completely done except for all the important parts. And I would definitely agree with that. I think that is hilarious, and I think it is true. Come on, Mr. President, it's time to get on it. Get this deal done. Either get them out of there, either get the Strait of Hormuz open, or do what you got to do to get it open. Period, and then get out of there. It's time. It's definitely time. Anyway, with that, that brings us to the end of our program. But before we go, we're going to do one last shout out to our sponsors. We've got Hitman Industries rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase at hitmanindustries.net. The California Republican Assembly, the conscience of the Republican Party. Check them out at cragop.org. We've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market at hogholsters.com. That's HAWG holsters.com, helping Americans wear guns. And then finally, the place where you can find all things tactical except the gun. And that would be at uscombatgear.com. And with that, it's the end of the program. We got one more day left this week. That's going to be Free for All Friday. We will be back tomorrow. So till then, y'all have fun. Y'all stay safe. And we will see you mañana.